Hey folks, David Stewart here. Let's talk a little bit about nightclubs, Vegas nightclubs. Why Vegas nightclubs for this little piece of mini content? Well, they're not really that different from nightclubs in, say, LA or San Francisco or Miami or New York, except that they're more extreme. They're like the nightclub experience in other cities, but like super concentrated and on hyper mode, like on steroids. And that's because Las Vegas is a tourist town, which means there's lots of competition. There's more nightclubs. Like there's a nightclub in every major casino. There's one in Bellagio. There's one in, there's one in Caesar's Palace. There's one at the Luxor. There's one at every major casino all the way up to like Fremont Street. We'll still have these nightclubs going on. And because tourists are there to spend money, you really are trying to get the most out of it. That's really the point of the nightclub, is to extract as much money as possible from the people that are there. And a nightclub really is selling a fantasy, just as much as a strip club is selling a fantasy. The fantasy that men pay for at a strip club is that women are interested in them. Sexually. Now, the fantasy that both sexes pay for at a nightclub is that the other sex is, interested in them or has qualities that they are interested in, depending on what the perspective is. So you're really buying into a fantasy, and everything in these Vegas nightclubs was built around selling that fantasy and disturbing anything which might dispel that fantasy. So I'm remembering one from the Bellagio that you'd walk into the hallway and there was music in the hallway, and it wasn't like club music. That was inside, the loud club music. But it was like, I don't know, Asian music or something, Asian-esque music. I can't remember it that clearly, but like they'd have all these bathtubs, just like row upon row of bathtubs as you're walking in, and there's just women bathing in the bathtubs. And I don't remember if they're naked because you can't really see under the water. It's like these dark bathtubs, and they're covered with flower petals, and they're just like bathing. And so you walk through this area to get to the club proper, where they'll have like a live DJ, and sometimes a big name one like, Bulldog or someone. This was like 10 years ago, I realize at this point. So I don't know who's popular now or who'd be doing these things now, but I remember like Bulldog doing them 10 years ago. And the whole point is to get your senses inflamed and get like your sex, trying to prime people to have their sex drive be active. And so you go through that, and then you go into this loud, raucous club, and there's tables in the club, and then there's like a big dance floor. And the way that they will monetize people when they come in is one that is rather disturbing when you know how it works, and maybe clever if you're trying to make a buck. It really all comes down to selling the fantasy in various capacities, and you do that in a lot of ways with alcohol. So first of all, you go in and you buy alcohol to try to loosen up, because it's not a situation where anyone would be normally socially comfortable. It's hard to be socially comfortable when you're literally pressed in upon by hot bodies of strangers. Now, I realize in the COVID world, this would be like, I don't know if this will ever come back, but anyway, this is how it was back then. So it's hard to be comfortable because that's not normal. You're not usually pressed in upon by a bunch of strangers with their sweaty, stinky bodies. So you order drinks that are way overpriced. They get, such a huge profit margin on the drinks in there. That's not even funny. And if you get a drink, maybe you meet a girl, you buy her a drink. Generally, women are not going to be spending any money at these things. In fact, before you even walk in, you have bouncers and you have people running the door that are keeping track of the ratio of men to women. You always want more women than men, because who are you extracting the money from? You're extracting it from the men. The men are the primary ones who are paying for the fantasy. Women are basically supplying their presence for the benefit of the establishment to sell alcohol to men and various kinds of other access. So yeah, you go down through that thing that's supposed to get you all like, get your sex drive on. And then you always keep the ratio of women a little higher than men, but not too high, because you want to have, again, as much money as possible. So you don't want no men in there. You want enough men that you can just keep getting them to buy drinks for women and things like that. So you buy a drink for a woman. You can't have a conversation in these places. It's too loud. It's impossible to talk to another person except screaming at them. So it will tire your voice out. You can't get to know that other person. And that's really important, because in order for that illusion of basically the woman being really interested in the man, and also that the man is a high quality man to the woman's basically supplying herself for her own fantasy sakes, which is to meet a man who's attractive, rich, things like that. And so you're going to, in order to get access as a man, you have to look a way that makes it look like you're rich, because that's what the women want to look. They want to have certain nice clothes on. And then if you look that certain way, you'll buy drinks for women. And so that's basically the sexual fantasy from the women's side, is that you have some sort of interesting and rich or high quality man trying to pay attention to you. From the man's side, he believes that the woman is sexually interested in him, is attracted to him. But this illusion will disappear if they talk too much, because they realize they have nothing in common and they don't like each other. So you don't want that. You want to disrupt conversations as much as possible. And then what you want to do is you want to sell access. If they want to try to have a conversation, well, you charge them for it. So you'll have tables off to the side, and people will basically have to buy a table for a large amount of money, or buy table service even more. So the tables will cost like a lot of hundreds of dollars just to sit down at a table that's a little further away from the screaming dance floor and the DJ, so you can have somewhat of a semblance of a conversation. It's still going to be loud and booming. Nothing can really disrupt the idea of what's going on there. You want to have that fantasy persist as much as possible. Even the bathrooms, like you have to go upstairs and they're still loud in the bathrooms. You can't even have a conversation in the bathroom. Again, nothing to actually disrupt the fantasy and allow people to actually know each other. Some tables are thousands of dollars and will come with like a table service, which is a hot girl who will sit down at your table and pour drinks for you. You'll pay for that, and you'll pay huge amounts of money. Men will tip. So men will spend thousands of dollars to sit at a table and have a woman pretend that she likes them and talk to them and pour them drinks. And that's literally what they're paying for. They're paying for the fantasy of a female actually being interested in them on, in some level. You'll even have, I remember like at one of them, they had women like this woman on like a zip line, like, if you order champagne, she'd like come, she was like dressed as an angel or something, and she zipped down the zip line over your table and like pour you champagne. And you'd be like, thanks. And it was like, well, that was like $800 worth of champagne per bottle. So she'd come deliver a bottle of champagne for you for like $500 or $800. And you can see how the nightclub would end up collecting huge amounts of money, enough that they could pay like a big name DJ to come any night of the week, because they could make the money back on alcohol without even blinking. There was men who would spend thousands of dollars just to engage in this fantasy. And I mentioned strip club because it's a lot like a strip club. You're presented with, a lot of times there's like go-go dancers, like women dancing on poles and stuff. This is just to get your sex drive really primed and really focused, and nothing can interrupt this idea of like you being interested in sex and trying to find a woman. And what men want is to find some woman that will leave with them and then they can sleep with them. That's the fantasy. Most men are completely unsuccessful, by the way. So you go to the nightclub and men will just strike out all night long. They just will spend hundreds of dollars and then go home alone, or leave with their friends. They're not leaving with the women, and women are the same thing. They like the male attention, but then if they're going to leave with a guy, all of a sudden it becomes a real thing where it's like, nah, I don't know him. So I'm not going to do that. So it's this weird social fantasy, this fantasy that you are having a good time. I don't know how you can have a good time with like your ears bleeding and like, I guess the alcohol helps. And then, leaving. Now, I would say I had reasonably good times at these establishments. They're really not for me, but I had mostly good times because I was there with friends, and I didn't have to pay for things. So when it's not really hurting my pocketbook, or I have somebody else paying for the alcohol, yeah, man, that's fine. Yeah, sure. You could buy some alcohol, get some... Give me a gin and tonic or whatever. Yeah, if you're paying, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm not drinking alcohol at whatever this crazy club is. I'm not paying $50 for a drink, and I'm not going to pay for a table. But because I was able to not pay for those things, I think it was a little bit easier for me. I think if you pay for it, though, I think it does there's like a psychological trick when people pay for it, which is they believe it's better. So when they pay for the table, they believe that the table is real. They believe the girl is really interested in them. And I think this happens at a strip club too. Men will throw money at a stripper thinking that the stripper is somehow sexually interested in them rather than just trying to extract their money. They're going through a dramatic exercise to get you to give them money. That's all a strip club is. It's there to inflame your lust and give you no satisfaction at the end of the day. And that's really the point of the club. Now, suppose that you were to go to the club, you find a girl, you hit it off, and you decide to leave. Well, that's no more money coming out of their pockets. They want you to stay in that club as long as possible and continue spending money, and they only want you to leave if you're out of money. So that's generally what happens. Men run out of money and then they have to leave because there's nothing else for them to do there. Anyway, so I thought I'd give some of my anecdotes about this. This is that way in other nightclubs as well, in other parts of the country. It's just in Las Vegas, it was like this concentrated thing, like completely about selling a fantasy and trying to exploit somebody's lust and giving them really nothing in return. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Leave me your thoughts down below if you've ever been to one of these or been to something similar. I was just thinking about, my Vegas days, which at this point were, I think I moved there 10 years ago. It's a long time. Things obviously are different, but they haven't really changed that much, as near as I can tell by talking to other people. It's still this feeling of like, it's going into some sort of anti-mass, like it's almost demonic what they try to do with the music to just get you to obliterate any kind of critical thought and just engage in some sort of motion to kind of express your lust and then pay for the privilege of doing that and really probably get nothing in return. So anyway, let me know what you think down below, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great one.